Okay, so let's get right into it. We're going to break down a really powerful system for learning things, a system that goes way beyond just, grabbing a highlighter and hoping for the best. This is about building real, actual knowledge that sticks with you.
You know the feeling, right? We've all been there. You read a whole page, maybe even a whole chapter, you get to the bottom, and it's just gone. Poof! It's probably one of the most frustrating things when you're trying to learn. But it turns out there's a really good reason why that happens, and more importantly, a way to fix it for good.
So here's the core idea. It really all boils down to two different ways of learning. You can be a scribe, or you can be a builder. Now, the scribe just passively copies things down, highlighting, rereading, thinking they're saving it to their brain. But the builder? The builder gets their hands dirty. They're actively questioning things, connecting ideas, and really constructing understanding. One just creates an illusion of knowing, while the other builds the real deal.
And that right there is the biggest mistake most of us make. We treat our brains like a hard drive, like a passive storage device, but that's not what it is at all. Your brain is a muscle, and like any muscle, it only gets stronger when you actually use it, when you make it work to retrieve information and build connections.
The good news is, making that switch from scribe to builder isn't some crazy, complicated thing. The solution is actually a pretty simple, structured process. We can break it all down into 3 phases: what you do before you read, what you do during, and what you do after.
All right, let's kick things off with phase 1, before you even read. This is all about prepping the battlefield, priming your brain so it's ready to absorb what's coming.
And this phase is super straightforward. First, you just have to define your purpose. Just ask yourself that one simple question. Why am I reading this? That question alone creates this powerful filter for your brain to grab onto the important stuff. Second, spend just 2 to 5 minutes skimming. Yeah, just look at the titles, the headings, the intro, the conclusion. It's not cheating. What you're doing is building a mental scaffold, a framework, so that when you start reading the details, you have a place to hang all that new information.
Next up, phase 2, aka the main event. This is all about engaging the material. This is where you really shift from being a passive spectator to being an active participant in your own learning.
So how do we do that? Well, we're going to focus on 2 key things. First, you have to get curious. Question everything. Turn every single heading into a question. If a heading says, causes of bank failures, your brain should immediately ask, okay, so what were the causes of bank failures? And then you read to find the answer. Second, you got to stop the mindless highlighting and instead take smart notes. And there is one technique for this that is an absolute game changer. And that technique is called the Feynman Technique. It's named after the brilliant physicist Richard Feynman, and honestly, its power is in its simplicity. The core idea is this: you don't really, truly understand something until you can explain it in simple, plain language. It's the ultimate test of your knowledge.
I mean, that's basically it in a nutshell. You read a section, a page, whatever, then you close the book, put it away, and you try to explain that concept out loud or on a piece of paper. The trick is, you have to use your own words, come up with your own examples and analogies. And the moment you get stuck or you have to use complicated jargon, boom, you've just found the exact gap in your understanding. It's like a diagnostic tool for your brain.
This is really where the magic happens. Instead of just memorizing a dry phrase like, banks experienced liquidity crises during bank runs, the technique forces you to create a simple analogy, something like, this coat check room. Suddenly, you have this vivid mental picture. That picture is the understanding. This technique forces you to create real meaning, not just parrot back a bunch of words.
Okay, let's move on to our final phase. Phase 3 is all about what happens after you've closed the book. And honestly, this is the step where most people completely drop the ball. This is how you fight that pesky forgetting curve and make sure the knowledge actually sticks around for the long haul. So here, the focus is all on retrieval and timing. First, as soon as you're done reading for the session, do a brain dump. Literally, just grab a blank sheet of paper and write down everything you can possibly remember. The very act of reaching back into your brain and pulling that information out is what strengthens the neural pathways. Second, you have to review, but you have to do it strategically, using something called spaced repetition. See, the key isn't to cram every single day. That's inefficient. It's all about reviewing the information at these increasing intervals. You check it a day later, then a few days after that, then a week later, and so on. Every time you recall it just as you're about to forget, you're sending a powerful signal to your brain that says, hey, this stuff is important, keep it. And that's how memories become permanent.
Now,
For anyone who wants to really level up their memory game, especially for things like lists or structured information, there's a technique that memory champions have been using for centuries. It's called the Memory Palace.
The whole concept is just fascinating. You're basically hijacking your brain's incredible spatial memory. All you do is choose a place you know inside and out, like your own house, and then you mentally place the things you want to remember along a familiar route. The key, and this is crucial, is to make the images that represent the information as vivid, as weird, and as absolutely bizarre as possible.
And building one is surprisingly simple. Step 1, pick your palace. Your house, your walk to work, whatever. Step 2, turn the abstract facts you need to remember into weird, unforgettable pictures. The stranger, the funnier, the more violent, the better. And step 3, to recall the info, you just take a mental stroll through your palace and look at all the crazy stuff you've stored there.
Let's look at a classic example. Say you need to remember the causes of the Great Depression. Okay, you start at your front door and bam, a stockbroker in tattered clothes crashes right through it. That's the stock market crash. You walk to your hallway table and you see your childhood piggy bank bawling its eyes out because it has a big red F on it. Bank failures. You go to the kitchen and there's a mountain of toasters and corn overflowing onto the floor. Overproduction. And finally, you get to the living room, and on your sofa are two wrestlers named Smooth and Holly building a wall out of your cushions. The Smoot-Hawley tariff. I mean, come on. You're never going to forget that image.
And that's the real secret sauce of this technique. You are taking dry, boring, abstract facts and translating them into the language your brain was built to understand. Vivid, visual, and spatial stories. It turns memorization from a total chore into a super fun, creative act.
So, when you look at the big picture, it all comes back to this one central idea. Are you going to be a passive scribe, just copying things down? Or are you going to be an active builder, constructing real knowledge? This whole system we just walked through, every single step is designed to help you make that crucial shift.
So, here's your toolkit, all in one place. First, you prime your brain by setting a purpose and building a scaffold. Then, you engage with the material by questioning everything and using the Feynman Technique. After that, you consolidate what you've learned with brain dumps and spaced repetition. And when you need to bring out the big guns, you level up with a memory palace. Look, this isn't just about studying for a test. It's about actually owning the things you learn. The blueprint is right here, and the tools are in your hands. So the only real question left is, what are you going to build?